Good morning, everybody. We've had many close and/or exciting elections since our country was founded, and perhaps the most bizarre and super close was the one on this date, or was declared on this date, November 6, in 1860, when Abraham Lincoln won. He was one of 4 candidates and had about 40% of the popular vote. Today's Republican Party had its beginning in Ripon, Wisconsin in 1854 as a protest against the Kansas-Nebraska Act, which was passed that same year, which seemed to allow the spread of slavery to areas where it had been prohibited. The next year, 1855, Frederick Douglass wrote this book, My Bondage and My Freedom, and this was a powerful argument against slavery, so it fueled that disagreement between North and South. And that was further fueled when Preston Brooks of South Carolina beat up Charles Sumner from Massachusetts in the Senate. So violence in our own government chambers. So look at this map. This is 1856 election, and the new party, the Republican Party, received all its votes in the North. So it was seen pretty much by everybody as a Northern party, and the South, of course, saw it as an anti-slavery party. In March of 1857, the Supreme Court ruled in the Dred Scott case that the Constitution was basically for white people only, and that blacks were basically property. And the South said it's about time. The North outraged. 1858, Abraham Lincoln challenged the sitting senator from Illinois, Stephen Douglas. In the race for the Senate, Lincoln lost, but became more of a nationally known political person. And in the off-year election in 1858, you can see that the Republican Party in red is growing, but it's still a Northern party. 1859, John Brown and his group tried to capture the arsenal at Harper's Ferry, Virginia. They were defeated. He was hanged, and the South was so upset that many in the North saw him as a hero. So in February of 1860, Abraham Lincoln traveled to New York City, where he gave a speech known as the Cooper Union speech. The Cooper Union building is still there today, and he laid out his views of slavery in the Constitution, and this raised him to more prominence. So here's the lineup for the election of 1860. Lincoln on the left, Republican. Then Stephen Douglas, Northern Democrat. John Bell, Constitutional Union, kind of a made-up party that said, let's just follow the Constitution. And then John Breckinridge, the Southern Democrats. So the Democratic Party split in two, which enabled Lincoln to win. So look at the pie charts here. The electoral vote, Lincoln got almost 60% of the electoral vote. Notice California and Oregon are states then. But in the popular vote, Lincoln got only 40%, partly because the popular vote was split between all those other parties. So after the election of 1860, southern states started to leave the Union. So here's the map of when they all did that. South Carolina was the first. The purple states are the states that left the Union after Fort Sumter, and then the tan states are the states that stayed within the Union. But what about being inaugurated? Well, in February, Jefferson Davis was inaugurated president of the Confederate States of America in Montgomery, Alabama. Later, the Confederates moved their capital to Richmond, Virginia, and in March, Lincoln was inaugurated up in Washington, D.C., and you'll note how the Capitol is being worked on, and it was being worked on all through the Civil War. So what about Fort Sumter in the harbor, Charleston, South Carolina? As the southern states seceded, many of them seized federal property, but President Buchanan, who was president before Lincoln, did not agree to hand over Fort Sumter to South Carolina. So when Lincoln became president, it was soon after that that the attack on Fort Sumter happened. The Civil War began.